Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition design team and lessons they can learn from the new Black Widow 2021 movie. Spoilers for the new 2021, for the new Black Widow's 2021 movie in this content. And I think the biggest lesson they can learn from the Black Widow 2021 movie is about lifting up marginalized groups and not leaving non-marginalized groups behind. Okay, so let's get into this. So basically, I think Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition right now, they have an incredibly difficult task in front of them. So they're 100% aware of all the woke issues in the world, and what they want to do is they want to lift up marginalized groups in the game and give them a bigger voice than they previously had, right? So who were the marginalized groups that have been marginalized previously, where there's a perception that these groups were marginalized previously by Dungeons & Dragons, and perhaps that perception is 100% real? I think people could debate whether these groups were marginalized or not. And you go to Twitter and there is a debate on whether these groups were marginalized or not. I definitely think each one of these groups was marginalized to some extent. There's debate about what extent these groups were marginalized in the past, right? I'm not saying any of these groups are marginalized now. I think we may be at a point now where all these groups are being recognized within Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and that's major progress. But these groups also want more representation than they have now, right? And so Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition is in this situation where they're trying to thread a needle, okay? And what is the needle they're trying to thread? They want to give groups that were previously marginalized or perceived to be marginalized by Dungeons & Dragons previously more voice. So what are those groups? Women, okay? LGBTQ, okay? And people of color, all right? There might be some other groups in there, but those are the primary three. So Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition wants to give these groups more voice, more representation, more power, right, when it comes to Dungeons & Dragons, and really just, having a say at the table, both in the DM slot, in the player slot, and even in the writer's room, in the lead. Oh yeah, here you go. Like, that's a great point, right? It's not. I love to get to the point where it's not debatable, right? There's no question there has not been representation for women, at the level it should, for LGBTQ and for people of color in the Dungeons & Dragons design lead, okay? Every single Dungeons & Dragons design lead since 1E has been a white male. Every single one, right? I was very convinced 2-3 years ago that they brought in Kate Welch to fix that problem, right? They brought in Kate Welch specifically to mentor her and bring her up as the new Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition or 5th Edition design lead to replace Mike Merles, right? Because Mike Merles is coming up on, I think he's been there 10, 15 years, right? And so it's a long time, and, maybe time to have a new lead, or a new design lead, right? Kate Welch was not chosen as that person, and that ended in tears and flames, and Kate Welch is gone, not even in the company anymore, right? So we don't really know who's going to be the next Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition design lead, but I will tell you right now, if there was anywhere in the world I could lay money on it, I would lay money on it, right? That the next 5th Edition design lead, well, I don't gamble, so I wouldn't, but I would bet a donut to a donut, with one of my friends that the next Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition design lead absolutely will be female. I don't think there's any two ways about that, and the reason why is it's never happened in the history of the game, and the game's 47 years old, right? So it's just going to happen, right? So they need to give more representation to women, to LGBTQ, to people of color, right? Okay, so they want to do that, right? At the same time, what they don't want to do is they don't want people to perceive that Dungeons & Dragons doesn't care about the game and all they care about is politics, right? And also, people are like, oh, hey, this isn't about politics, this is just human rights. Well, the problem is all of these, you could say that, representation for women isn't politics, but can you literally say that when we've never had a female president, not once, ever? right? It's about politics. Representation is 100% about politics, right? And so saying this isn't a political stance seems kind of ridiculous to me, right? These are absolutely political issues, right? I definitely think these are political issues. So basically, and Dungeons and Dragons, I think they understand that too, that people perceive these as political issues, right? And to be clear, there is a lot of discussion in politics about these exact issues, right? So the idea to say this is non-political, I just don't understand where people come off, trying to say that. It doesn't make any sense to me, right? So Dungeons and Dragons doesn't want the game to seem like, oh, we don't really care about the game, we just care about politics now. So they got to thread this needle, right? Or I think they're trying to thread this needle, right? Now, the new Black Widow movie, highly political movie. Why is it highly political? It has to be highly political, and the reason why is it is a female-led actioner, right? And this is under constant scrutiny and constant discussion constant scrutiny, constant discussion in Hollywood right now, because the female-led actioner is a major problem, okay? Women, absolutely 100% correctly, have said, hey, pay me fair, pay me equal, do it, give me, now, right? And they've gotten it, right? Like, there are female actresses who have made, we're seeing films now where the female lead is making more than the male lead. It does happen, right? And I think one of the most famous ones is Passenger. Jennifer Lawrence was paid more than Chris Pratt in that film, and Jennifer Lawrence really cracked the ceiling on payment for women in Hollywood. And so you have this situation where the female-led actioner is a serious problem now, right? Because women are saying, hey, equal pay, give us equal pay, right? Hollywood's like, all right, sorry about that. We should have given you equal pay. Here's your equal pay. But now Hollywood's like, hey, we've been giving equal pay for a few years now, and we ain't seeing an equal return, right? And that's the issue. Is Blake Lively had one. Wonder Woman 1984 was another one. Salt was another one. There have been female-led actioners, and not a single one of them has outperformed male-led actioners. So there has not been a female-led actioner, to my knowledge, that's even cracked $1 billion, right? And $1 billion, that's not even a high bar, right? Like there's got to be 50 movies in the world that have cracked $1 billion, right? But there's not a single lead female actioner that's cracked $1 billion, right? And so that's a huge, huge, huge problem, right? So and it's a problem that Hollywood needs to fix, right? So Black Widow's on this list, right? So Black Widow is unmistakably a female-led actioner, right? So it needs to deliver, right? It needs to deliver for all of Hollywood, right? And so here we have so Black Widow spins up, does its thing, right? I watched the movie, and here's what happens. Black Widow looks amazing. Black Widow is presented as a major awesome hero in the movie, right? She's got tons of killer lines, killer poses, killer action shots. She looks fantastic. Plus, you could ×2 Black Widow, because there's a younger Widow who is I think her name is Florence Pugh. I think she's clearly queued up in this movie to replace Scarlett Johansson. I think mostly because Scarlett Johansson no longer is interested in playing in the role. I just saw an article where she says she has no intentions of returning to play Black Widow. So, it makes sense that Marvel would need somebody who replace her, right? And in the movie, they're like, hey, here's your younger Widow, right? And so, and she has, she looks fantastic in the movie from the perspective of killer lines, killer action moves, killer poses. She looks amazing, right? So this marginalized group is now being lifted up and presented well, right? So now you have the non-marginalized group. Now, who is the non-marginalized group? Well, when it comes to perception right now, one group that is absolutely perceived to be non-marginalized is white males. I think they are the one group where there's no debate that they are a non-marginalized group, right? Now, actually, I guess there is debate now, but when you have this discussion and you say who's a non-marginalized group, most people are going to put white male at the top of that list, right? So there is a white male in the Black Widow movie. He is David Harbour, and he plays the Red Guardian, right? And he's a major part of the movie. He's a protagonist in the movie. He's a good guy in the movie. He is used, in my opinion, 100% as comedy filler, right? He is the comic relief. Right? So the problem with it is, and I watched this film, and by the way, I'm not a white male. I'm actually Basque and Native American. So I'm from the Mattapanai tribe, and I'm also from the Basque, who are shepherds who live in Spain, in the mountains of Spain. So now I will say, I think I have passing privilege. A lot of people look at me and they don't think Basque and Native American, but that's what I am. So just getting the facts out there. So I watched David Harbour. He's one of my favorite actors. I really enjoyed him in this movie. But there was this thing where he's constantly there's a drumbeat. David Harbour is stupid. Red Guardian is stupid. Red Guardian is fat. Red Guardian is ineffective. Red Guardian is a bad dad. Red Guardian is a bad team member. Like, it is just an absolute constant stream of this person will be the butt of every joke, right? Now, here's the thing. You need comic relief. I get that, right? But if you have a protagonist, you have to give them a moment to shine, right? One moment. So in this movie, they actually put it in the movies. He's like, all I'm good at is punching people and smashing things, right? So I need and he literally says it at multiple points in the movie. I need to punch stuff and smash things and do what I do, right? And so you're waiting, and I got to the point where I was waiting for it. I'm like, oh, this is cool, man. There's so much great action in this movie. By the way, Black Widow 2021 is the best action movie in the MCU, bar none. Because it's John Wick comes to MCU, and it is fantastic, right? But zero of that action is given to David Harbour. He does nothing cool, right? At no point does he get a win. At no point does he get a W. At no point does he do anything cool, right? And I think this is what the D&D 5e design team needs to learn, and what they can learn. And I think it's a mistake they made in the Black Widow movie, and I think D&D 5e design team has an opportunity to learn from it. Lift up the marginalized groups. Lift them up, way up, high up, right? But don't leave the non-marginalized group at zero. Don't leave them at zero. It's a mistake, right? I totally understand people have frustration for that non-marginalized group having, so many wins for so long. But when you come to a commercial product and you are waiting for, the 4 quadrants to come to this product, you can't leave the non-marginalized group at zero. And that's what they did with David Harbour. He did not have a single win in the whole film. He was just constantly called fat, called stupid, called ineffective, called a deadbeat dad, called a deadbeat husband, called a deadbeat friend, called a deadbeat team member, and it was just incessant, and there were no W's allowed for him, right? So if you have a marginalized group, give them 17 W's, right? But the problem is you can't leave the non-marginalized protagonist, right, with 0 W's. That's my opinion. Am I wrong here? I know this is a deep subject. I think that's correct. You got it. It could be 17-1, right? But there's got to be a 1. It can't be 0, right? And I felt bad for David Harbour in this movie. I'm glad he got the role, and I think he should have taken it. And I'm really glad he got his millions for I'm sure they paid him 1, 2, maybe up to $5 million for being in this. And he was fantastic in it. And I really enjoyed seeing him in it. But the fact that his character was given 0 W's, right? 0 wins, and was just a constant butt of the joke. I think this is how you thread the needle, right? Don't do that. Put the proportions at 17-1. But don't do it at 17-0. That's my take, right? For the D&D design team to move forward and make a woke D&D palatable, and a woke D&D effective, and a woke D&D successful. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.